So the most recent case on this issue came up 4 years ago, actually a Pennsylvania case, Mahanoy School District versus BL. This is the cussing cheerleader case. So this was a case involving a girl, BL, we know her from her initials because she's a minor, who posted 2 images on Snapchat off campus over the weekend, not during the school day, where she disparaged with, I didn't put the language up here, but she used the F word, right? Where she disparaged the school and the cheerleading squad, which she had not made or was in danger of not making. So she posted a couple of posts to Snapchat saying F cheer, F the school, so on. And she was then suspended from the cheerleading squad for a year. And Justice Kavanaugh asked at oral argument, couldn't we have found like a compromise here? Like now the Supreme Court of the United States is now deciding about the constitutional status of this girl's Snapchat posts from a weekend. But so she was suspended for a year, brings a claim. And the interesting issue in Mahanoy was this question of off-campus speech, because Tinker versus Des Moines and a lot of the other student speech cases involve speech in the school during the school day or school activities, or extracurricular activities. So here the question was, is this kind of off-campus speech on the part of a student, what's the First Amendment protection, if any, for that? And of course, the oral argument, the justices were trying to kind of draw lines about, well, clearly, like if there was harassment or kind of bullying or other kinds of speech that a student was engaged in, even if it's off campus, the school, we think, probably should be able to reach that kind of speech. Well, what about our little cussing cheerleader here? What about her Snapchat post here? And the Supreme Court, in an 8-1 decision, Justice Thomas dissenting because he has had the view for his whole time on the court that actually the First Amendment free speech protections don't apply to the K-12 setting, don't apply to minors. But every other justice took the view that the cussing cheerleader should win in this case. And in his majority opinion in the case, Justice Breyer makes a few points I think are important and interesting along the way. One, he says that so there's this old idea maybe of the operating or acting in loco parentis in place of the parents, and that schools, especially during the school day, might have a kind of in loco parentis oversight of kids and kind of what their activities are and what kinds of speech they're engaging in and so forth, but not when they're off campus. And then he makes the point, which of course I think was very much an issue in the litigation, that the problem with regulation of off-campus speech is that it kind of turns the schoolhouse gate of Tinker versus Des Moines into a 24/7 proposition, right? That then basically everything a student does off campus all day, all night, on the weekends, as this happened to be, becomes subject to potential oversight and punishment by the school. And that means that courts must be more skeptical, as he says, of a school's efforts to regulate off-campus speech. For doing so, maybe the student cannot engage in that kind of speech at all. And then there's another part of his opinion, a little in the opinion, where he says that the school itself has an interest in protecting a student's unpopular expression, especially when it takes place off campus, because there's a paragraph about how public schools are the nurseries of American democracy, which, as the parent of kids, many kids have gone through public schools, is a very benevolent rendering of public schools, but there it is. He says that public schools are kind of the nursery of democracy. We want students to learn the skills of debate and discourse and arguing with each other, and because of that, we also think that in this kind of context there's a danger here of punishing unpopular expression here, and that here the cheerleader, albeit in a crude, vulgar way, was expressing her disapproval of the school and of the cheerleading squad, and that is speech that would ordinarily be protected and shouldn't be any less protected just because it happens to be associated with the school. And again, the danger that if the school is punishing students for their off-campus speech and also then has oversight of their speech while they're in school, then effectively we turn into a 24-hour day threat to the student's ability to engage in expressive messages. So it's a case that students always love because it's kind of very pertinent to their own lives in some ways, and also it has these vivid facts about the cussing cheerleader. And of course, lots of cases, and we'll do these in the colloquium we do with students about, well, what about university settings and public universities, hate speech codes, other free speech cases besides Mahanoy and Tinker versus Des Moines, where, for instance, questions about the regulation of extracurricular activities, school newspapers, questions like that. But Mahanoy, at least in the traditional kind of student speech context, was the most recent case on this. And again, as I say, a case in which the free speech claim prevailed once again.